Would you regularly show up to Crescent Lake Park to the advanced side, play rec games if they were all inputted in DUPR?
I mean, that wouldn't make me excited to go, no.
I would never.
You get a game with like precious old Jerry, like 75.
Would love that. And that's like the fun of rec play is it doesn't matter really who you play and it doesn't matter who you play with. Like you're taking away kind of the freedom that rec play gives. Can we talk about the new SLK era paddle?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you like about it? And then I'll tell you what I like.
Honestly, it's super stable in your hands. It's a lot of power, but I really like that because of the dwell time, I can really take pace off the ball if I need to. And honestly, just the technology is probably my favorite Selkirk paddle that they've released.
There are two different shapes, the elongated and the wide body.
Yeah, brand new shapes.
I am obsessed with the wide body. For the first time ever for a wide body paddle, I'm not mishitting my two-handed backhand. I'm not mishitting my counter because you still have that longer handle. I'm super, super impressed with it. And if you guys want to go check out the new SLK Air paddle, go to selkirk.com and choose elongated or wide body. And I promise you, you are going to love it because we're obsessed. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Pickleball Connection podcast. I'm Danea.
And I'm Barrett.
And we're stoked to be hanging out with you guys today. Today, we are going to be doing something that we call CTN, which is Cruise the News, where we kind of look at the latest pickleball topics. So without further ado, let's jump right into things.
Yeah, so as we always do, we like to scan the pickleball forums, which can be pretty interesting on Facebook, Reddit, and just kind of pull some interesting topics to talk about. And I came across one earlier today, and I want to get your thoughts on it because I know what I think about it. But this sweet lady asks in the Pickleball Forum Facebook group, she says, our pickleball group at our country club, which goals, has decided to enter every rec game played into DUPR. You're playing with various levels of players, even though this is an intermediate group. There are some advanced and some newer players that are self-rated. My feeling is that when it comes to DUPR, it should have to do with tournament play only. I'm not sure. She said, I'm not sure I like entering someone else's scores for every game. They are actually writing down players and scores in between games. Am I wrong about this?
Wow.
What would you think about that? Like you show up at your local rec park and you have somebody like with a
recording
pen
scores.
And paper, like basically saying every game you ever played needs to be recorded into DUPR.
I would absolutely hate that.
Why?
Well, it's terrible. I mean, I think it's one thing if you're in a tournament, like you're signing up for that, but like rec play you almost don't know really what you're going to get. Like I know she said this is an intermediate level, but like there's also advanced and newer players coming in that are all not all self-rated, but self-rated. So I feel like the chances of you playing somebody that is at your level is just kind of here nor there. And plus it's rec play. Like, I don't know about you, but sometimes in rec play, obviously I liked winning, but I also like to work on new things. Like that's my time to like practice a new shot or practice a new combo that I'm working on. And I feel like I have the liberty to do that in rec play because like there's no consequences that are going to happen. But now if my DUPR is going to be like affected, which is annoying that it matters, but like if it's going to be affected, I'm going to play different. I'm not going to play to practice. I'm going to play to only win. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think another part about this is that like the vast majority of people play or care about doubles. And in a tournament, you're picking your partner to go play with.
Right. I didn't even think about that.
And so there's an element of like, their skill level, you kind of have an idea going in. But in rec play,
what if you get stuck with somebody like way worse?
What if you're playing with somebody that you don't know?
What if you get stuck with someone way better?
Exactly. What if you play somebody way worse or way better? It's just like, that's the issue is that I think when you have a tournament, you have at least, and yes, we know people sandbag. We know people play in divisions they shouldn't play in.
Sure.
But when you have a set division that you have to sign up for in a tournament, pay money for,
different.
you at least are getting more likely people on your skill level. Your partner's going to be likely around your skill level. But in rec play, it's like you could have such a variety. So I'm like, that to me even makes it harder to like, what does the algorithm do? Like, I feel like the algorithm would be like, why are all these people on the same court together?
Yeah.
How do we know how much to like increase or decrease someone's score?
Would you show up to, like, for example, the place we play is Crescent Lake Park. It's an outdoor public park. Would you regularly show up to Crescent Lake Park to the advanced side, because that's where we play, and play rec games if they were all inputted in DUPR?
Well, to be very honest, I haven't really been showing up a lot at Crescent Lake Park lately anyways.
I know, but if the circumstances were every game gets put into rec play.
I mean, that wouldn't make me excited to go, no.
Yeah,
I mean,
either.
It's also, it's kind of street ball at Crescent Lake Park.
I know,
you know, it's kind of like,
but think about it.
The nets are super low.
The nets and the courts.
The courts are a little wonky.
I would never.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, I'm like, I could see like maybe there are a lot of people out there who need a rating, who need to get their score up or down. They don't really like have much of a reliability to their score because they never log matches. So I guess it could be helpful in some circumstances. But like even on this post I was reading, some guy responded. He said, "We tried this at our club and our members absolutely hated it." So like, I don't know. I can't
imagine many people that would love it.
I'm like, maybe, but I think that's why they have like DUPR nights at clubs. They have certain nights where they're like ladder events where you go and you kind of like king of the court style.
Yep.
And I get that. But again, I think if people are playing like games with like a big discrepancy in the rankings, I feel like that makes DUPR like unreliable.
It would make me not want to play certain players, and it would make me not want to play with certain players. And that's like the fun of rec play, is it doesn't matter really who you play, and it doesn't matter who you play with.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're taking away kind of the freedom that rec play gives.
Like let's say like into the night you get a game with like precious old Jerry, like 75.
Would love that.
You love that kind of stuff.
I love that.
But now it's logged into DUPR.
But now I'm not loving it.
Jerry's.
Peace out, Jerry.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I also think sometimes people take their DUPR way too seriously. Like there's so many factors that come into.
And think about this. Think about like line calls will get so much more intense.
Yeah. Like
line calls, all that stuff. Like rec play, it's already intense sometimes. Can you imagine if there are DUPRs on the line though?
Yeah. To me, like DUPR's really only accurate if you're logging matches very consistently though.
All the time.
So like that's the other part of it, is that there's like a lot of people out there who play 1 or 2 tournaments a year. And so because they're not logging matches, when they do log a match, it like radically affects their DUPR one way or another. And I really do think that they obviously tried to add that reliability score on your DUPR that shows you how reliable your number is.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, like if you haven't played in a while, if you haven't played in logged a match in like 4 or 5 months, and then you go play that first match, it really affects your score because you haven't recorded one in so long. So I think it's only really accurate if you're playing like 6 tournaments a year, like if you're playing every other month.
Sure.
So I think that's the interesting part of it, is like maybe people have an argument that it would make your DUPR more reliable because you're logging games more consistently. But I think it's the lack of being able to regulate the levels.
And my thing too is that it's like some of these people, especially rec play, don't necessarily ever want to play a tournament. You know, like why do they need a DUPR? Why is that getting pushed onto them? You know, like they don't care.
And to my understanding, like, so I think this happened to me once where somebody I played once, I can't remember if it was like in a local tournament.
It was a tournament. I know what you're talking about.
That didn't get logged into DUPR. It was like a local tournament. And like 6 months later, they came and like tried to request that match be logged into DUPR.
Yep.
So I got like a notification. This person is wanting me to verify that this game happened.
Yeah.
And that was like very shocking to me. I was like, this was like 6-7 months ago.
Right.
And I wasn't under the impression that any of these matches were going into DUPR. It was like just a small little local event that, you know, I don't know. So I think it's interesting because don't people, like, they're saying that like people are recording their matches into DUPR, but don't you have to give consent? Like, you don't have to give consent for a tournament.
Tournaments are you don't have to give consent.
But like, if it's a rec match, you have to give consent, right?
Yeah.
Because you could just log any match with any person.
Unless their local club is saying like, hey, we're...
Oh, maybe that's what they're saying. Maybe there's somebody going around with a pen and paper, recording matches, giving them to the local club, and then the local club is like,
they're like hosting it as a tournament or DUPR night.
That's crazy, actually. I wouldn't come to that club.
You lost 2 members if you're that country club.
But again, then you could just win, I guess. Just win and your DUPR goes up. Or
I wouldn't
honestly,
go.
But that's the issue is like, I
wouldn't go.
If you win games that you shouldn't win, or that you should win, if you win games that like you're a heavy favorite in,
happens.
It doesn't really affect your DUPR
Sometimes
anyways.
It goes down.
And if you lose
depending on the score, sometimes it goes down.
If you lose games you shouldn't, it really affects your score. Yeah. So like, I don't know. Interesting. Okay. Do you have any more DUPR thoughts before we go into the next one?
But I am curious. Obviously, that's just kind of our thoughts. Like, what do you guys think? If your local rec park or wherever you play just for practice started recording every single match, would that like super turn you off to going to rec play? Comment below your thoughts, because I just feel like we are in the far majority when it comes to this answer.
Yeah, let us know. Hey, have you heard of the new Play More app?
No, what is it?
Basically, the Play More app is like a stress-free scheduling app for pickleballers. So I don't know, we've struggled a lot in group text trying to organize play. You'll set it up and somebody will just like the text. And I'm like, does that actually mean you're coming or not?
Yeah, and it's like, you never know how many people you have, like what rating they are. It's kind of annoying.
It can kind of just be a nightmare to try to organize groups because group texts are just not fun. So basically the Play More app lets you send out invitations. You get an RSVP list. If somebody doesn't show, there's a wait list that will actually like put somebody right into.
No way.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Dang, that's awesome. What's it called?
It's called the Play More app. So you should download it at the App Store, or you can go to getplaymore.com if you want to look at it online. All right, we're going to talk about something that I'm sure the listeners have heard of, they've kind of probably caught wind of it. They maybe read an article on it, but this has to do with pro pickleball.
Okay.
So we know that there was just recently an announcement that the PPA Tour has decided to restructure the way they pay out their pros.
Correct.
So it's important for us to set up first how pros were or are being paid up until this point.
Yeah.
Do you want to give them like a background of tour wars? And all this?
Let me give the Spark Notes history of this. So if you were around during the tour wars, which I want to say was now 3 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think about. Before, PPA and MLP were 2 totally different bodies, like run by 2 totally different organizations, so to say. Now, at the time, they were kind of battling for exclusivity for the pros to be playing in their different tours, since they were literally 2 completely separate tours. So you had the MLP that was going on and signing all of these pickleball pros to exclusive MLP contracts.
The team format.
And then you had the PPA going out and trying to sign all these pros exclusively to the PPA and the PPA format. So what this ended up doing was it increased players' salaries by an insane amount.
Because they basically have 2 different tours bidding.
There was a bidding war.
Think about like multiple buyers submitting offers on a house.
Exactly.
It drives the price up.
The prices went way up. So now all these players went from having, these really, for lack of a better word, like conservative contracts to very inflated contracts where players were no longer like having to get payouts for how they did. They were literally getting just a base salary appearance fee to exclusively play in a tour. Now, this not changed. Now, PPA and MLP ended up kind of merging. Okay. But these players have been kind of on these salary contracts. I think they took one cut for some of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the tour approached them about taking a cut. I think some players did, some players didn't, blah, blah, blah. But that's that to say, a lot of these contracts are kind of ending this year and next year. And now the PPA is restructuring the payment so that now these salaries aren't going to be quite as inflated as what we saw 3 years ago, but they're going to be moving from a base salary contract to a more
prize money
contract. So
right,
that's the background. Did I miss anything?
No, that's a good summary of the background. And now it's interesting though, because they're going to a payout incentive, which would really pay out, some pretty good money for people that win. There's like specific tiers. Like if a player makes it to the quarterfinals, or I think it's round of 16, quarterfinals, semis, finals, win. There's different structures based off of the event. Like we know the tour has these cups, they have these slams, right? So the slams count for more points towards their end of the year standings, which then they go into the PPA Tour finals based off of their standings. So the slams, the bigger events, pay out a little bit more than the cups. But I think, my kind of 2 cents is, well, first, before I give you my opinion, let's talk about like how much they're doing.
Yeah, so, give people a little.
So right now they have basically said that there is $11 million annually in guaranteed prize money, $15 million annually in prize money across the PPA and Tour and MLP. So there's obviously payouts that come with MLP events.
Yes. So this payment structure pulls into MLP.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically about $15 million between PPA and MLP in guaranteed prize money. Now they hope that this will grow over time. And then an additional $5 million minimum annually guaranteed for international prize opportunities. So as we know, their PPA is like advertising a tournament right now in Malaysia. They have Australia, India. They have like these plans to take this tour more international. So there's going to be prize money there as well. But the interesting thing is that they do have this structure on how much you can win based off of the contract that you have signed. So it's not like some random person can just show up, and if a random person wins gold at a tournament, and then the next tournament, Ben Johns wins gold, Ben Johns is going to get paid a lot more than this random person because this random person doesn't have a gold contract. They basically have divided it up into gold contracts,
which are going to be your high premier.
But what's interesting is the way that they're deciding who has a gold contract.
Yes, talk about this.
Is based off of when you signed during the Tour Wars era. So as we know that like a lot of these players, like they held out and they were waiting for those.
For example, the Johnson 5, this was a good example of this.
They were waiting kind of in this bidding war. And then there were other players who signed with the PPA Tour the following year, or they kind of went as free agents. They kind of stepped away. And so what's interesting is gold contracts are players who signed during fall of 2023 prior to the MLP PPA merger. So before they actually, when they were in the wars.
This is the bidding war.
So all the players, I believe, I could be wrong,
that were in the bidding war,
that signed with MLP originally, maybe they're honored because they signed a contract. Because it's all one entity now. But
they were all signed by PPA and MLP during that time.
Right. So as long as they signed a contract before the merger,
yes,
they're a gold contract player. Then standard contracts are the next one, available to players who joined post 2023, signable from August 15th all the way up until September 23rd of 2025. All of the players that signed in the last 2 years, standard contracts, and then contracts they're calling new or futures contracts are opportunities for unsigned currently or emerging players to sign a UPA contract from September 23rd through November 1st, 2025. So they have a deadline. They're going to use this as this push to get more people to sign before November 1st, because at least you get a futures contract.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting that there's different levels of contracts which equate to different levels of payouts based. So I think it hurts new players and emerging players.
It absolutely hurts the new players and emerging players the most.
So it's kind of like if you were a pro in 2023 and you were relevant and you signed, you are going to feel great.
If you were in the bidding war, you're good.
Now, that doesn't mean that these unsigned players can't come in and get a contract in the future. It doesn't mean that they can't get prize money, but the amount of potential take-home money is much lower, which is very interesting. So this begs the question, which is kind of why we wanted to talk about this. There are obviously some pros and cons, some different ways to look at it, but do you think as a whole, the prize guaranteed take-home money structure is good for pickleball?
Yes. It's hard because
I sense a little hesitancy.
It's yes and no. Like the reality is, we have seen this. I think that you would agree with me. There have been players that have been playing with this salary that, to be honest, I don't want to say they don't deserve it. Shoot, how do I land the plane? They aren't giving the results that they should be for what they're getting paid comparatively. So like there are players that signed in the bidding war that honestly might not even be breaking the top 25 that could be making more than people that are in the top 10. Like that's how volatile the salaries were.
Right.
And so like in that regard, I'm like, it stinks for the players that have come in after the bidding war that maybe have really started to kind of get the rise, be on the rise and really pull amazing results that didn't have that inflated contract of 2023 players.
Yeah. I mean, so here's my question.
Well, would you agree?
Do I agree that it's good for the game?
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I think having these incentives, I think if you look at other sports, if you look at golf, tennis. You look at like just different sports where prize money is,
racing.
It creates NASCAR. It creates yes, get your sponsorship money from your sponsors.
Yeah.
And it creates maybe a little bit more competition. We talked about in a previous podcast how, at the MLP, like I think the Johns brothers were getting like a combined $80-something thousand
for the weekend
for just showing up, regardless of how you do. I don't care who you are. Like if you're guaranteed that versus you could win $250K if your team wins it at the end of the year. That's way different. Mm-hmm. The motivation, the drive is way different. And obviously people can survive just off of their competitive nature and their drive, but I think it will create, hopefully better competition. Yeah. Is what I'm hoping for. And I think honestly, these contracts were just so inflated anyways. I don't think it was sustainable.
No, not for where pickleball is right now as a sport, because it's really still in its infancy, I think.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for the game. I do think it's going to really hurt players coming in, because really what those contracts did was it gave people the opportunity to go full-time into pickleball without having another job and having to sustain another job. I think a lot of these future pros are not going to be able to go full-time with those contracts.
And to be honest, like I have a question about this, and I don't know if they've been very clear about it, but what I want to know is, can other players at any point in the future, let's fast forward 5 years, 10 years.
Ooh.
Can other players that don't currently have gold contracts get that status?
I don't know how long.
Because I'm like, if it was just capped at everyone who signed pre-merger, like, is that like a lifetime guaranteed gold contract and nobody else can ever break into there? And then, like, what happens 20 years down the road? What happens when people retire? Like, do gold contracts just go away?
I don't know
like,
how long. I feel
there's
like
got to be a way for you to be able to qualify to sign. And maybe these gold contracts, standard contracts, new futures contracts, maybe they're a couple years long, and at expiration they'll sign all the top players to gold contracts, and they'll do it all over again. I don't know.
I'm not a lawyer. I obviously haven't seen one of these contracts, but I would assume there's some type of expiration. I think they did the gold and all that stuff to accommodate for what happened in 2023.
So maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, those contracts will expire, and they'll approach the top 10 players in the world, and they'll say, you guys are eligible for gold contracts.
Because I don't know if you know this part of it, but like some of these contracts that players signed in the Tour Wars aren't over yet. So they have one more eligible year of payout. And what the PPA is doing is they're saying, okay, your last year payout, let's say that they were going to pay out, this is not a real number, but let's say they were going to pay out $250,000 a year to a player. That's going to be spread as in the next 3 years. So it's going to be divided by 3. And that's going to be their appearance fee based money for the next 3 years. So they'll get their full payout, but it'll be over 3 years for the 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that, like, is this can you achieve a gold contract in the future if you're just a player that's like maybe we haven't met the best player in the world yet. Maybe there's a male player that in 2 or 3 years he's going to come onto the scene. He's going to absolutely dominate every other person.
He's the new male ALW.
Yeah, maybe he's 14 right now. By the time he turns 17, he's 5-10 times better than Ben Johns. I don't know how good people are going to be, but I'm like, is that player never going to be able to qualify for a gold contract? And I don't. Maybe, like you said, maybe this is just temporary. Like, would they get to a point where they're like, all right, these contracts are over. Now it's an equal playing field for everybody. This is the prize money if you win. Like, maybe these structures, like you said, are to, as they transition out of these other contracts, this is what makes the most sense. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But it's interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting to think about. But I do think it is good for the sport. I think that we need to motivate the players by more than just an appearance fee, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely agree. I think what will be interesting to see is, will the viewers notice a difference?
Yeah.
Because think about it. Under the previous thing, you take a player that maybe doesn't win many golds,
mm-hmm.
and they win a gold.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you see them, they get excited and emotional on court. But now it's like, not only did you just win a gold, but the prize money is 10x what it would have been.
Yeah.
And you needed a paycheck.
It. Yeah.
You know, versus like, oh, I was already getting paid $200,000 a year, and I just won $2,000 for winning this gold.
Right.
You know, like, it's just it's
a totally different circumstance. I do think I wonder if we will see, more emotion, or if it will mean more to players. I would assume it would, but
yeah. But guys, let us know in the comments what you think about this whole change from more of a salaried type of 3-year contract, inflated 3-year salary,
mm-hmm.
versus us kind of moving to this payout prize structure within and different tiers within the payouts. Let us know what you think about that in the comments. And do you think this is good for pickleball? I'm very curious. Let me know what you think.
Well, guys, make sure before you leave to give us a review or however you're consuming this podcast. 5 stars only, please. And we will see you guys in the next one.